All right, everyone, I am super excited for us to have a guest on today. I have the one and only Dino Watt. Dino is a champion of just overall culture. He's a wealth of knowledge. He has an extraordinary ability to share, speak, communicate, and connect with offices and practices around the country to help them improve their teams and help them improve their culture and just be an asset inside of the dental community and the orthodontic community specifically. So we're really honored that he chose to be here today and to share that with you. Thank you, Dino, for choosing to be here today with our audience. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So let's just start at the beginning. How did Dino become the Dino of today? How did you end up to where you are today? How did you get into dentistry? How did you get into the community building? How did that journey begin for you?
I feel like I should quote the jerk at this point. I was born a poor. It's really weird. So I grew up in Southern California wanting to become a performer. That's all I ever wanted to do. I saw a couple of things. Number one, I saw a dancer at Disneyland and went, I want to be a Disney dancer, which I eventually did one day. I wanted to be like Donny Osmond was my thing. I saw him in the Donnie Marie show growing up and thought, yep, that's the guy I want to be like. And I wanted to marry Marie and be Donnie. Which was weird because they're brother and sister. So, but I grew up, always wanted to do that. But I also wanted to be a dad and a husband. And I got married pretty young. And I ended up kind of leaving that dream behind after having 3 kids in 3 years, realizing the movie industry and television industry, it's really not conducive to having a family at a young age and making a living, and became a challenge. So I gave up on that. And in search of what is going to do with his life now, because I never thought beyond actually doing that, I saw a gentleman speaking on stage talking about taxes. It was actually at a real estate investment seminar, if you will. And I thought, oh, this guy, oddly enough, even though it was taxes, sorry, anybody who does taxes out there, but he was not boring. He was engaging and fun, joking. And I went, I want to do that. So that started me on my pursuit of learning how to speak on stages and how to still perform, because I was able to take my performance background, and blend those two together. And it just became this really interesting thing where I started coaching people on stuff that I cared about, that I really loved about. I started speaking on stage about marriage and how to run your marriage like a business, and had different business principles, and ended up having a friend here locally. Well, he became a friend, Garrett Gunderson, which I know is a friend of the show. He hired me to help in his marriage. And he had always believed in having a coach and said, hey, I need a coach for my marriage too. Hired me. It went really well. And he was working a ton with chiropractors and dentists at the time. And he introduced me to a gentleman named Scott Law out of Texas, who basically asked me to come and do the same thing I did with him and with Garrett and his wife. And I didn't know at the time that Scott was what we call in the industry a KOL, a key opinion leader at that time. This was 2000. And he said, no one's really talking like this in our industry. And as a matter of fact, this is working great in my marriage, but I'm married to, at that time, like 23, 24 other work wives. I need to learn how to communicate better with them and have a conversation with them. And so he invited me to speak at his office. We did some work together there. Then he asked me to speak at a couple of different events like the Pitts Progressive Group and the Schulman Group. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I was able to take my love for business. I mean, through all of that, I had built a business in LA. I had sold a TV show that I produced and grew. So I had that information, that knowledge. I combined that with my love for culture and presenting and teamwork and really people. And it just kind of grew into this. And here we are now over a decade later.
That's awesome. It's amazing how these small choices that we make to like push forward lead down this path of like really cool opportunities for us. And
yeah,
it's really neat when those things turn out really well for us. So because we work with a lot of dental practices, and just the makeup of dental practices and dental industry is usually have oftentimes a male business owner with a very large female staff.
Yeah.
What would you call in this ability to communicate with your employees? Is there 2 or 3 big problems you typically see that doctors are just not aware of, or they might be aware of but don't know how to identify it, that could be fixed relatively easily by just a few key programs or processes they could implement?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question. I think what's interesting about it as well is we are seeing a large number of female dentists and orthodontists coming out, and creates a whole different set of problems because, and I have right now, I want to say maybe the majority of my clients are female orthodontists.
Okay.
And the reason why it's a different animal is, unfortunately, a lot of the females in the office as the team members will give the male doctor a little more of a break with his brashness or his not so genial way of actually talking to them and asking for what they want or giving criticism. Whereas they don't give as much of a break to that as the female doctors, because there tends to be this like, oh, she's being mean, or even worse words, right?
Right.
So what has to happen with both of them is very clear understanding and lines around this idea of, hey, I am here to support you and in your growth as a part of my team. And I need to be able to say this and it not be a personal offense to you. And it's also a generational thing right now. So clarity on what you want and what you expect is key. Setting everybody up for success by saying, this is exactly what I want and how this looks when it's done. Brene Brown does a thing way better than I do around, tell me what it looks like when it's done. Paint the picture for me when this thing is done. There's not a lot of that going on. There's a lot of assumption. The first thing that I teach in any event, as I'm speaking as a keynote speaker or a trainer, or when I go into an office, is this idea of perspective. The understanding that even though you might have said it this way, taught them this thing, and walked them through this process, their perspective is going to change, and the way they see it is different than the way you do. And so if you expect 100% accuracy with what you said a day, 2 days, a week, a month later, you're setting yourself up for failure. So number one is clarity. Number two is perspective. And number three is repetition. It is fascinating to me to think of the people that believe if they've said it once, we should be good. I should never have to say that again. But it's like in any relationship. I tell my wife I love her. We've been married 30 years all the time because I don't want her to forget it. And I want her to be clear on my feelings towards her, even though it seems, quote, obvious. In a business relationship, it's even more so. You got to repeat, you got to check in, you got to follow up, you got to hold accountable. And if not, everybody deals with, in every situation of life, but especially in business, entropy. If you're not always following up and having accountability, you will have entropy in your office no matter what. And that's the degradation of all communication.
Wow. That was really well said. I'm really impressed by that. So when you go into an office and what does your program look like? Do you have online stuff for doctors? Is it just in person? Is it one-to-one coaching? Give insight into because those, I'm sure that might have resonated with a lot of people. How do they access more of you?
Yeah. So I have a different way of approaching my business. Number one, it's me. I don't have consultants underneath me. So that means my time is limited and what I do is very specialized. So I do have an online portion of what I do, and I don't really promote that all so much, in the sense of there are times where there's maybe a brand new practice or a practice that's really struggling that they probably can't invest in my services on a practical basis, right? They're not making the money barely to cover their overhead. They're not going to hire me. Totally makes sense. So I have an online course that has been awesome. I have had so many people go through it that have really benefited hugely for it. As a matter of fact, it's so weird. I just got a text from a client who has been through the entire program and then it's probably been about 6 months since she's been through her year. So it's now 18 months later. And she just texted me last week. She said, hey, we're working in this section of the program. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. She goes, oh, we review it every week. Like, the team loves this because they're getting taught by me without me actually being there. And they know me. They've seen me at speeches and things like that. So that's one way people can engage in that way. The majority of people really engage with me by having me out to their office to do what's called a 2-day office visit. I observe for about 5 to 6 hours. I sit in the TC room to see what's going on with their sales process, because I love sales and I look at it completely different than what most people do in our industry. There's some methods that you learn about sales when you're outside of this industry that are very beneficial for this industry that not a lot of people are teaching. And then the next day I'll do a 4 to 5 hour long training with the team. And that's really fun and exciting with them. Or they do doctor appreciation events where they need someone to come and impress their referring doctors, their dentist, to come and have great CE, make it a great time, and make them leave there wanting to refer more. I actually just finished up a week and a half ago, and I'll be giving this for free to everybody as a doctor appreciation event blueprint that teaches people how to do it from beginning, middle, and end. And so a lot of people engage me that way. And then the third way is through what we've just released is our Ignite Study Club, which is for the practice managers only. And people will engage in that way with us too. So there's various ways to engage with me. When it comes to personal one-on-one stuff, I only take on 8 to 10 clients a year.
Okay.
That's it. I want to be able to give as much as I can to my clients without being spread thin. And I travel quite a bit. So I need to be able to have time for them, efforts to my clients. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that.
Got it. Understood. I think there's value there because you have a lot of skills here, and it's important for. These are skills that you're teaching that I don't. I mean, like I struggle. Like this is something I know I struggle with, and so like it takes like what you mentioned, that repetitiveness, and so it requires someone to coach you through it more than just like much deeper. If you really want to change the behavior, I think you have to really dive deep to fix it.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said. I use this phrase a lot, which is favorite Uncle Dino. As a owner, you repeat stuff, you learn stuff at events. Maybe you have your own personal coach as well. But when you take it to the team, it's not always heard as well as it could be because it's you. I have 3 children. We went through the teenage years, and it's like, even now, they're grown adults. And if we do say anything, which we're really trying not to say anything about their lives or anything like that, we're not in that committee anymore. That's not our job, right? But if we do, it's, oh, yeah, sure, dad. But if their aunt says it to them, or my sister-in-law, for example, is good friends with my 2 daughters, if she says it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's so smart, even though it's what I just said. Right. So I often become the favorite Uncle Dino of the office where the doctor can say, well, Dino said, and they can blame Dino. And I'm fully aware of that. So it makes it a lot easier.
I like it. So with all of this that you built, what is the one thing that you feel like is like, man, I'm really proud of this. This is like the thing that I'm just so proud of. And it's like the game changer for people that interact with me.
Gosh, great question. The thing that makes me the most proud is when I have people that come up to me at the AAO, like just happened a couple weeks ago, or they see me at an event, or people who reach out to me just personally and say, hey, you came into our office and taught about this thing, or I was in the audience when you mentioned X, and I took that home and that changed my life. I'll give an example. I have a process that I do with some of my teams around vision and really seeing your future and picturing yourself 3 years out. And I did this process with this team, and I had honestly forgotten about it. It had been maybe about a year and a half later. And I got an email one day from a team member who said, hey, Dino, I was working for so-and-so ortho at the time, and you came out and you worked with us. We were clients of yours for a year, and you had us do that exercise around vision. And I put on my vision that I wanted to own a house, which at the time, my husband and I thought we would never be able to do. And it was just a kind of a ridiculous dream, but you told us to dream big. And I want you to know it's now been 12 months since I put that on my board, and my husband and I just moved into our brand new house last weekend. Like there's no price on that. Like that's so cool. And I said, hi, my name's Dino. And he goes, oh wait, you're Dino? And I went, yeah, I'm Dino. And he says, oh, my wife is so-and-so who happened to be the TC of this office, and I'm their IT guy. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, she's great. And he goes, she's your biggest fan, and you've literally saved our marriage with some of the things you've taught her.
Wow.
I mean, I never met this guy. I met his wife. I got to say stuff. That's cool, right? So no one particular thing, it's a lot of little things that add up or big things that add up
Right.
that's what I love to get to do. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's these small ripples that keep going
Yeah.
off in all these different directions. You had a ripple because you heard someone speak and it rippled this direction. Now you're rippling through people's lives. It's just really cool when we're able to make those and experience those with people.
Well, the corporate name of my company is Our Ripple Effect.
Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome. That's great. So what are you looking forward to? Like, what's your vision 3 years out? What do you anticipate yourself doing? Do you still see yourself being in this consulting space and growing this? What's your vision for the 3 year outlook on your life?
Yeah, I'm really excited about what's happening now. I'm doing a big pivot in my business. This year is my pivot year. Uh, I I did 96 trips last year.
Mm.
That was a lot. It was a very busy year. And I got to the end of the year and went, yeah, I'm so grateful for what I got to do. I don't want to do that again. Still traveling a lot. Still have a lot of stuff booked out. Leave tomorrow for California. I am doing two things that I love the most. Number one is we created, like I said, the Ignite Practice Manager Study Club. I've been working on that for over a year because I really feel like there's a segment of our industry that's not being served, and yet they are so crucial to the growth and success of a business. A practice manager lives in this gray area in their practice where they're not the doctor, but they're in charge of the growth of that practice. Like they are so responsible for the growth and the things that are running smoothly and implementing the systems and processes that the doctor wants. And yet they don't get the socioeconomic benefit of the growth of the practice the way the doctor does. They don't get the accolades. Their name isn't on the board over the door. And yet they also not a normal team member because they got to be in that place of being able to critique, discipline, and make sure that things are being implemented the right way. So they're just kind of lone ranger out there. And I noticed that there just wasn't a lot of support for them unless they're in some sort of consulting company, and that's fine. But even then, it's just a one view. So I thought, what if we could create a group of people who are thinking the same, who are in the same type of environment? Some of them have been around doing it for 10, 20, 30 years. Some just started. Where can we have a support? So I see in 3 years that being a membership of 100 to 200 people where we're just really supporting these practices because we're doing it in a way where it supports and enhances the consulting that they're in. If they're in some sort of consulting with any one of the other consultants out there, great. They don't have to join my consulting to do it. It's just being a part of the group. So that's a really big deal. And I finally this year took my own advice and just leapt for it, which is my Stand and Deliver bootcamp program, which is basically all of the knowledge I've gained over the last 20 years, really 30 years of being on stage. If you wanted to go real deep, almost 45 years of being on stage from as a little kid and learning how to connect with audiences and be more captivating and more memorable, and taking that into a group of anybody, not just in the ortho or dental space, but if you're in front of people, if you're a CEO, if you're a Sunday school leader, if you're someone who just wants to be better at presenting and be more memorable, then I created a whole system around doing that. And so I see in 3 years us not only continue doing that 3 times a year, but the group that comes out of that called Stage is growing and has at least 100 members in that and going strong there. So that's the two real loves that I have in my life right now.
I like that. It's really, really important for people to stand and deliver. Just like it's so to be able to communicate, and it doesn't matter where you are. Like if you can communicate, you can change your life. I can imagine your ability to communicate is one of the reasons you've been able to succeed so well is because you're able to communicate in such a compelling way that gets people to remember you. So I think that ties in really well. Businesses aren't built by the one person. It's not built by the business owner. It's built by the team that you hire. And if you can't get the team to be in the same vision, the same direction as you as the business owner, you're going to be stalled out at some level, wherever it is. You could be really successful still, but you're still stalled out because you don't have the team behind you. So I think that's going to change practices in a massive way, in a way that I don't know a lot of the industry's focused on, because a lot of the industry focuses on the owner itself.
Yep.
So really
Totally agree.
That's really great. Well, I really have appreciated this. Is there any other words of wisdom that you could share for practice owners or even team members that you think is currently in their blind spot, but they need to open their eyes to and start making some changes on?
Let me do the first one, a practical thing that I talk about usually every time this year, which is people are gearing up and get ready for a summer, right? Kids are getting out of school. And so ortho offices, especially, are going to be a lot busier. This is their busy season. And I always say, prepare for the August or September. Whenever kids go back to school, you need to prepare now for that. It's a given. You're probably going to have a pretty busy summer, but it almost feels like it's an expectation that we all get to August, September, wherever it is in your area where kids go back to school. And we expect those months to be wah. And we schedule our conferences and our vacations and all this stuff there because it's going to be a bummer month. Well, it doesn't have to be. Let's prepare now for then. Let's be proactive and think of what can we do? Can we do a homeschool extravaganza where we tell all of the people in our area that if you're homeschooled, don't come in during the summer, yes. But August and September, we set that aside for homeschool moms and kids. Or is this, if you're a dental office, let's set it aside for our seniors. So start advertising now for, hey, seniors, make sure you make an appointment in August and September, because that's when we focus on our seniors who need to get their teeth checked. And we don't have to worry about those low months, but it's all about preparation. So that's the first practical thing. Second one is this: talk to your team members every single day about what's happening and the exhaustion that you're going to feel in the next 2 months coming forward, because it's going to be a busy month. Acknowledge it. Don't try to just ignore it and be like, yeah, we all get it. Acknowledge it. Hey guys, it's been busy, but you've been doing great. Hey guys, it's been awesome. It's been challenging, but you're doing great. We got this. We can get through this. Let's lean on our core values. Hopefully you have core values and you lean on those, and do some surprise and delights with your teams. Like bring in an ice cream day, ice cream bar for one day, or bring in lunch on a surprise weekday on the middle of the week or something like that. Do stuff to celebrate them and get them going and excited about it. But don't just assume that just because we're all in this together, everyone's feeling the same way. They don't. It's completely different. So I would really focus in on that and let them know that they got this. If you want to really take it to another level, I'm a huge fan of morning huddles. For those offices out there that are listening, that I don't care what industry you're in, if you're not doing a morning huddle, then you're missing out on connection and clarification with your team. But I also love an evening huddle to cap the evening off. But even more than that, lunchtime huddles, like after lunch, literally 3 to 5 minutes after lunch, to be able to say, hey guys, the morning got away from us and it was kind of frustrating, but that's okay. We got this. Just like halftime at a football game. We got this. We can do this. I believe in you. Or morning was awesome. Let's keep it going. That's when you don't think you need it, when you're too busy for it, is exactly when you need it. So that's what I would suggest for this weekend or for this summer.
Right. That's awesome. Those are extraordinary pieces of advice. And I really encourage people to follow those, because these all seem small. They're simple, but you just got to take the action. And just to tie it back to the beginning, when you took that action to get into speaking because you heard that speaker, that led to where you are now. Thank you, Dino, for being here. Can you just let people know, like, where do they follow you? How do they reach out to you if they're interested? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on all the socials. Like you said at the very beginning, the one and only. There's not a lot of Dino Watts in the world, so you can pretty much find that Dino Watt. But dinowatt.com or dinowattconsulting.com is more of my speaking and learning more about that, having me keynote at events. And then Dino Watt Consulting is my business side. I'm on all the socials. If you're interested in the Ignite Practice Manager Study Club, just go to ignitestudyclub.com and you'll find out more about it there. Stand and Deliver. I don't know when this is going to be released, but the next event is happening May 30th through June 1st. And then if you're not able to make that one for Stand and Deliver, that is happening at the end of August, and it's standanddeliverbootcamp.com.
Okay. I think it'll be, the people will hear this and they'll know that they'll be available for the August one.
Very cool. Great.
Yeah, they have the magical power to know that it's happening before they can attend the May one.
That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dino. I really appreciate it.